I was asked to select a communication I have had recently and analyze it using the communication process model shown in Figure 7.1 of Lundenberg and Ornstein. I noticed the student was struggling to get very far in her homework assignment. I asked the student if everything was okay or if she needed some help. She said she was having difficulty solving equations and was becoming frustrated because she couldn't get past a certain step. I had her write out the problem and show me where she was having trouble. I then walked her through how to complete the step. At first, she looked at me as if expecting more. I said, "That's it. That's the answer," and I gave her a new problem. She solved the problem and again got to the same step and paused. She said, "So at this point, I just need to divide by the number in front of the variable?" I said, "That's right." A look of relief crossed her face and she said, "Oh, that's easy." I said, "Let's try one more." This time she tackled the problem without hesitation and came to the right solution. I told her she was correct and she thanked me for the extra help. So, looking at that situation, if we digest the communication process provided by Lundenberg and Ornstein, we see that I represent the sender because I initiated the conversation, and she would represent the receiver. I first developed the idea that she was struggling with the assignment because she was not getting very far. Okay, I looked over there and she wasn't where the rest of the students were, so I assumed that something was wrong. I then took that idea and decided I needed to check in with the student. I transmitted my concern directly to her, in which she received the message. She was then able to decode and understand where I was coming from on my assumption that she could use the help. I'm assuming that she was able to come to that conclusion because she didn't have very much accomplished. So she was able to agree with me that, yeah, I do need some help. She accepted the message and proceeded by explaining what she needed help on. We were then able to have a two-way conversation and solve the problem she was struggling with. And I think that this really depicts the idea of that communication process. I mean, you can't have a conversation with someone without truly understanding how the process works, and being able to notice that she was struggling with this homework. I was then able to go over and talk to her, and she was able to accept that yeah, she was struggling, and then we were able to move forward with our two-way conversation to solve the problem that she was struggling with. The next question, I was also asked to observe for 15 minutes the nonverbal communication behavior of teachers visiting. I watched a group of teachers in the teacher lounge over lunch break, and this was a lot of fun for me. It felt a little bit creepy at first, just kind of observing, and I didn't really speak much myself. I just watched how the teachers were reacting with one another, but I really enjoyed doing this activity. So here's our lounge. The lounge has a large rectangular table in the middle with chairs all around it. And then we have a couple of microwaves that teachers use for warming up their food. As teachers, we all know we only have usually around 30 minutes for lunch, and this can create a sense of panic in the room as teachers are quickly preparing their meals and trying to move on with the day as quickly as they can. So once everyone's meals were prepared, I glanced around and I saw several different facial expressions. Some looked as if they were glad to have a break after a long day's work as they slouched down in their chair and relaxed. So they had more of a relaxed manner, like, oh, we finally get a little chance to collect our thoughts and just simply relax. Now others, I looked around and they were kind of the opposite. They were like, I need to hustle through lunch. I need to rush as quickly as I can so that I can go back and work more. So it was just kind of two different approaches, and that was all. I noticed all that just from the way they were sitting in their chairs and the way that the look on their face, whether they looked frantic or panicked, like something was on their mind, or they just looked like they were glad to be at lunch. As they continued to eat, some teachers began to have have little conversations amongst each other, and mainly with the people sitting next to them. And as that was going on, I noticed that other teachers, began to this is the interesting part. Some teachers were able to listen to two conversations at once, and you could see that because they were actively looking at somebody that was talking to them, but their head would sort of cock in a way that made me assume that they were kind of listening to another conversation at the same time. And then the funny part is, as they were answering the person they were directly talking to, they were then able to chime into another conversation. So I was able to definitely pick up that they were having two conversations at one time, which for me sometimes is difficult because I'm not very good at multitasking. But I found that to be pretty cool. Um, so basically, it was like someone was actively listening to someone else at the same time. Now this was the next part here is what I found really really interesting. Somebody was talking to somebody sitting next to them. Okay, they were actively just talking, having casual conversation. But while they were the one speaking, okay, while they were the one speaking, they were also listening to somebody else talk. And I mean, that just baffles me. I don't know how you can have two conversations, talking to someone and also listening to someone all at the same time. I mean, I'm not able to do that, and I think maybe as good listeners, we shouldn't do that, but some people do find themselves listening and talking and able to do all that, which is, as teachers, we kind of have that witness mentality. So maybe that's where it comes from. And I'm still a pretty young teacher, so I'm still developing that habit, I guess. Um, when people were excited, I noticed that they would often raise their voice or vary their voice. Their tone of voice would change, and I think that's important so that it gives a clue that to the listener that something exciting is happening, and they're able to pick up on that as well. For the most part, the verbal and nonverbal communication was consistent. In other words, the teacher's nonverbal communication matched that of their verbal communication. However, I did notice some inconsistencies between verbal and nonverbal communication. I witnessed a teacher engage in a calm tone with another teacher about student performance on a test, but their nonverbal communication looked as if they were very stressed out or feeling rushed at lunchtime. So they had the look that they were panicked or feeling very anxious, and yet when they were talking, they were very calm and collected. And so I thought that was a little bit inconsistent with what their body language was giving off. But other than that, I thought for the most part, the verbal matched the nonverbal communication. But again, I found it very interesting watching my colleagues' nonverbal communication. It was enlightening for me, and it was amazing. It was also amazing how much we show or tell about ourselves without even speaking, and I think that's important. I think a lot of times we don't realize that we're telling people a lot more than we know just by our body language. So this was a fun assignment for me, and that's really all I got. So thanks for viewing my video.